Broncos are going to lose today. Never. It's nothing special. Small. 49ers are biased on KD. That is a stupid idea. No. If I can take it when my team, I'll give the Colts the benefit of the doubt. Madden 21 was so bad.
I'm gonna show last time I'm getting my body again.
Has he played? Has he started in the
Right to tell you.
Tag him on Instagram. Second, and all these tantrums. I could have.
Monte Foreman coming out of Texas.
Truly appreciate the offer.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 10 of That One Dude 2020 right here on the MI6 Sports Network. But before we kind of really get started, yes, of course, schedule's been all over the place. But this Saturday, Darren Smith interview right here on That One Dude 2020. But let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. The thing that I haven't done in a couple of weeks that I really missed to do, but thank you to Isaiah himself, is the Isaiah Roast Sess. Folks, we all do embarrassing things in life, and if we don't always share them on the internet, it wouldn't be a problem. But Isaiah deleted his right to not be embarrassed when you publicly share it with the group chat. Folks, this first one here, we know Isaiah, okay, he listens to One Direction, whatever. But folks, it gets even better from there. Isaiah was on a Zoom call for job training, and on the Zoom call for job training, there was 50 people, keyword, 50 people on the job training, counting his supervisor. He decides to listen to One Direction, starts screaming the song out loud, singing it out loud. Wouldn't be a problem. Sounds fine. But here's the catchy thing, folks. Isaiah forgot to put himself on mute before he started screaming and singing One Direction, a boy band that I'm not even sure is still around. I mean, Isaiah says he's just one of those characters that just loves and maybe thrives to embarrass himself. But man, if you're gonna listen to One Direction, sing about it, fine. But dude, remember, on any Zoom call, if anybody has never learned, never forget to put yourself on mute or to turn the camera off. And of course, Isaiah did forget about that. But Isaiah also said in the group chat that last year when he bought Peacock TV, there was nothing else on TV. So folks, what does Isaiah do? When there's nothing else on TV for Peacock TV, what does Isaiah watch? Brace it. Isaiah decided to watch Teletubbies. Now, I remember watching that when I was like 2 to 3 years old. We can all have our different shows, but this is also the guy that love to talk to a teddy bear. If you do any of that, fine. But when you share it with the group chat and tell us not to say anything on air or to other people, you reserve the right to not be embarrassed. Chris Russell says One Direction split up. Thank you for that. Again, I don't know any One Direction songs, and even if I did, I wouldn't share that with people on air. And I would remember to put myself on mute and to turn off the camera. But 50 people saw it, all good and fun, and all 5 members are pursuing solo careers. Well, wish them the best. But I just thought it was kind of funny that Isaiah was singing Teletubbies. Not sorry, Teletubbies. The One Direction on a group chat for job training and forgot to put himself on mute. But this last 2-1 here is, folks, we know how much Isaiah loves baseball. You know, he destroyed his computer by trying to throw a fastball pretending to be a baseball player. But this one here, Isaiah has his favorite baseball player. Again, I don't know his name right here. I believe it is called, give me just 1 second. His name is Mike Kickham. Again, I'll probably pronounce his name wrong. It's Mike Kickham or Kickham, whatever his name is. So Isaiah thought it'd be a good idea to name his kid Kickham. Really, you're gonna name your kid Kickham after a baseball player. But again, Isaiah just loves to embarrass himself. But this last one here, before we get into our NFL segment on That One Dude 2020, episode 10 on the MI6 Sports Network, Isaiah went to the hospital. Not because of something that happens with somebody because of a broken foot. Here's what happened, folks. Isaiah decided to pretend to be an MLB pitcher, and he tried to throw fastballs. No, where do you think he would try to throw fastballs? You think, oh, it's probably in the garage or in the front. No, he did it in his backyard. So pretending to be an MLB pitcher throwing fastballs, and he strained one of his ligament in his elbow, and he had to go to the hospital. So, Kyle, everybody, I would love to hear your thoughts on that. But man, Isaiah, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a baseball player. But dude, you went to the hospital with strained ligaments in your elbow, and I don't know what else to say but conference. Well, let's go. Again, thank you all almost so much for the support of watching this content. We have a lot of huge guests coming out that we will be announcing here live on air, like I've already shown on the Facebook page by Isaiah. Hopefully you don't name your kid Kickham, and you probably shouldn't be watching Teletubbies anymore. But that's just me. But ladies and gentlemen, the first NFL segment, it's a little bit of a rant. You know, I had this rant with a college football coach, of former college football head coach of the Texas Longhorns. Just when you think Chicago couldn't get more interesting, they hire Tom Herman to be an offensive analyst. You hire him to be an offensive analyst with the Chicago Bears. And he's also in charge of special projects. What part of Tom Herman did they see with the Longhorns, thinking he would be a good idea with the Chicago Bears? I'll keep this as calmly as I can because people are sleeping all around the apartment complex. But folks, let me make this clear. Tom Herman, you couldn't discipline college players on the field. He had no discipline with the tackling, no discipline with the leadership. There was no leadership. There was no individual player that we saw that struck out as the leader. There was no player that couldn't tackle a guy to save his life. Isaiah could have potentially tackled better than those Texas defensive players. I said offensive analyst. I believe that's what it says on the thing. I don't know really what that is. And y'all, if y'all know any more information about that, if I got that wrong, let me know. But folks, Tom Herman, what did he do at UT? We already had the issues with the Longhorns talking about Charlie Strong. Charlie Strong had as many wins against OU as Tom Herman did. So really, folks, what is so special? What did the Chicago Bears see with Tom Herman that the Longhorns somehow didn't see when he was their coach for the past 3 to 4 seasons? Tom Herman with the Texas Longhorns, my favorite college football team all time, die hard. I'm not going to mix and match with which team I want to follow in NCAA, unlike Isaiah Leon. We won't mention names of who do that. Tom Herman with the Texas Longhorns, they couldn't find their identity as a team, as an offense or a defense. You couldn't find your identity like a teenager tries to do in school. I mean, folks, you could go back trying to watch film the past 3 to 4 years. One of the many problems with Tom Herman and the Texas Longhorns is not just a discipline. It is literally how you play well as an offense. And the problem is here, folks, they thrived from playing from behind. So what part of that offensive analyst do you think Tom Herman is going to do? Teach you how to get behind by 10 to 15 plus points and try to come back in the game, and it would be too late? At what point is Chicago finally going to realize to head into a different direction? The ownership needs to get their head out of their ear. At what part do they truly thought Tom Herman was qualified to be an offensive analyst? He couldn't even be a head coach. What was he going to analyze? How to lose a game? How to lose against a valuable opponent? How to lose against the Packers? How to lose against the Vikings? How to lose against Lions and Jared Goff? Really, folks, you got Cousins, you got Rodgers, and right now you got Jared Goff in that division. So what part of the offense for the Chicago Bears is Tom Herman going to be able to analyze? Chicago doesn't even know right now, at least they haven't released it, who their franchise quarterback is going to be for 2021. If they don't know who their franchise quarterback is going to be right now, even before the draft or pre-free agency, What is Tom Herman going to analyze next year? They're going to move on from Mitchell Trubisky. Are they going to draft a quarterback? Most likely, in my opinion, just because Chicago Bears don't have the money. The NFL really didn't make any revenue last year due to not being able to have fans at the stadiums because of COVID and all different rules across different states. I'm just trying to get in the mind of the Chicago Bears GM, of the organization, of why they really thought, what part of our offense could Tom Herman analyze? Do I think he's a good dude? Phenomenal. Yes, but I'm talking about just as a guy, he just didn't have the idea. Yeah, I understand you did it with Ohio State in terms of where you were in the organization. I understand you did it with, I think, the University of Houston or Houston. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you did it with Houston. I overhyped you up in Texas. I was so excited what you did at Ohio State, Houston, and nothing happens. You're 1-4 against OU, just about the same record as Charlie Strong. And then you go to the NFL with the Chicago Bears, who, yes, they made the playoffs. And if they let Mr. Trubisky be the quarterback and have a head coach that is more interesting than butter pecan flavored ice cream, it's dry, it's bland, it's boring. So you have Matt Nagy, whose offense is as easy to figure out as I don't know what it would be. It's as easy to figure out as 1 + 1 = 2. And then you bring in a guy who couldn't win in the Big 12, who couldn't beat OU, who couldn't find their identity as an offense, who couldn't analyze what can we do better so we can move forward, maybe beat OU, and maybe get to the playoffs. Did the Longhorns make the playoffs? No. Have they won the national championship in the past couple years? No. It's been a long time. So looking at it from the Chicago Bears point, I understand they're trying to maybe revamp their offense. Maybe Matt Nagy try to bring back to what they did in 2018. But the problem is sometimes with coaches, when they find something well in 2018, or whenever season that they end, when they had the good season, maybe they get cocky or it gets in their heads like, well, we did very well. We're unstoppable. But this is the NFL, folks. This isn't like college where you can do maybe the same thing over and over for a certain amount of time. The NFL is about men. The NFL is about they're figuring it out. Matt Nagy couldn't coach last year. Matt Nagy couldn't instill confidence in Mitchell Trubisky. Even if, let's say, Mitchell Trubisky was never your quarterback. Let's say you never wanted to draft Mitchell Trubisky. But you couldn't at least give him the confidence that he could be the guy. I'm not saying lie to the quarterback, but give him the confidence. Hype him up. So let's say he's not the guy, but make sure he performs the best as he can, because if it doesn't work out, you can get a lot more for that quarterback than now you bench him, don't have him the confidence. You couldn't analyze a piece of grass on turf. You know, turf is fake grass. So you're going to bring in Tom Herman. What exactly is Tom Herman going to analyze to make Chicago Bears a contender, not just in the NFC North, but the entire NFC? That's what I'm trying to understand here, folks. Counter, I know you're a Chicago Bears fan. I don't mean to kind of dog on your Bears at all, but I would love to hear, Callan, your opinion on this. The comment section below or coming on in the video. How do you feel about Tom Herman being signed by the Chicago Bears? Mind you, folks, he's not an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. He's not a head coach. He's not any of those things. But it makes me wonder, what are the Chicago Bears trying to prove? It's like they're in their identity in terms of winning or losing is like a teenage girl trying to figure out what she wants, because you're in win now mode, but you're moving on from Mitch Trubisky. You're probably going to trade or release Nick Foles because you may not get as much from him as you want. So your defense, in terms of who you have on a defense, you're in win now mode. What's going to happen with David Montgomery? You're trying to trade Allen Robinson, your best receiver, and you have no identity at the quarterback position. You're going to draft a quarterback not knowing what Matt Nagy is going to do because his offense is so basic, like vanilla ice cream. Then you're going to draft a quarterback. What can Tom Herman do? Any Chicago Bears fans out there that are watching this video or that are Chicago Bears fans for however length of time, what do y'all truly and genuinely think Tom Herman could bring to the Chicago Bears? Do I think he could have bring the fire in him? Yes. But it's going to be a long off season, just because I'm not saying this to just dog on the Chicago Bears. I'm saying that if you're going to get a new quarterback, You're trying to trade your star receiver, trying to find the identity as an offense and trying to help Tom Herman to analyze what can we do different, what can we do better than what we did in 2020, 2019, and previous years before. How can I unlock what I think Matt Nagy could potentially or maybe not do as a head coach? Christy Wilson comes in to say if the Bears just became more of a hot mess than before. I agree, Christy Wilson. There's definitely a lot of maybe not necessarily bitter thoughts, but a bad past when I got so excited about bringing Tom Herman to the Texas Longhorns. And look what happened from there. But again, I would love to hear y'all's genuine opinion. Are the Chicago Bears making the right move? Is this a mistake? Is this really going to help or hurt the Chicago Bears in the draft, free agency, and going to the 2021 NFL season? We'd love to hear y'all's opinions. Episode 10, That One Dude 2020, right here on the MI6 Sports Network. Let's get to the news here. It's happened a couple of days ago. The Arizona Cardinals signed J.J. Watt. No, am I surprised? But the Arizona Cardinals signed J.J. Watt. Again, it was a 2-year deal. I believe $31 million, $23 million guaranteed. So about almost $12 million per year. We talk how much is guaranteed. Maybe the last $8 million is in incentives, which happens in contracts. Folks, we knew J.J. Watt wasn't happy with the Texans. And like I say, Deshaun Watson, I believe, will be traded before training camp. And it's maybe not the most wild opinion. When we look at J.J. Watt, maybe like Sammy Server was saying a couple of days ago on Wild Sports Talk, is he's going to where the money was. And I'll add to that. Were there as many NFL franchises offering the amount of money that J.J. Watt was looking for? It's just a thought. It's just a theory in my head. Were franchises giving or offering money to J.J. Watt in the contract that he wanted? Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? I hope J.J. Watt succeeds. Who knows what can genuinely and willfully happen here? But I wish J.J. Watt the best. And we'll continue on talking about that right now. But let's get to the comments here. James Gonzalez comes in to say, I hope Watt plays a full season and gets sacks and swats at the line. I agree, and more kind of that talking about Russell Wilson in Seattle in just a moment. That One Dude 2020, episode 10 on the MI6 Sports Network. Christy Wilson comes in to say, I think J.J. Watt can provide leadership to that Cardinals defense. Exactly. I think that's part of the reason why they gave him this contract, Christy, is that they need that leadership on defense where potentially Patrick Peterson could be gone. Chandler Jones is back again. Chandler Jones, I've talked about him before, and That One Dude 2020 right here on the MI6 Sports Network. The most underrated defender in the NFL. No defensive end has sacked the quarterback more than Chandler Jones since 2012. So put Chandler Jones, a veteran defensive end, with J.J. Watt. It could be very interesting. I think maybe it could go one or two ways. I think this could make the Arizona Cardinals Super Bowl contenders. But hear me out, folks. Don't get all crazy and routed out. I think the Cardinals signing J.J. Watt could make them Super Bowl contenders. But there are other things that need to happen in free agency and in the draft for this to fully go into effect. J.J. Watt does make this Cardinals defense better. But just like James Gonzalez comes in to say, I'll read this again. I hope J.J. Watt plays a full season and gets sacks and swats at the line. No doubt. That's really, I think, the big concern, if not the only concern, not just with the Cardinals and fans out there that are rooting for J.J. Watt, is can J.J. Watt stay healthy for a full 16-game NFL season and potentially the playoffs, depending on what's happening in the NFC West with certain NFL teams. Cough, cough. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But if J.J. Watt's going to make the Cardinals Super Bowl contenders, there's another player the Cardinals could sign in free agency. Mind you, I believe they have Isaiah White on the defensive side of the ball. You got Chandler Jones. Jordan Hicks was kind of a bust signing in free agency 2 to 3 seasons ago, a year after the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2018. You got Chandler Jones. You got J.J. White. You got Isaiah White. I mean, that's really all you have on defense. That be enough. The thing is, even if you sign the right guys in free agency, you draft the right players, pick after pick. The problem, all that goes beyond. You can draft the right players and sign the right players and trade for the right players in free agency in the draft. But the one question bear in mind, not just the Cardinals fans, does the Cardinals organization trust Cliff Kingsbury? Do they truly and genuinely think, is Cliff Kingsbury the guy moving forward? And I really don't know. Do they trust Cliff Kingsbury? You can have all the right pieces next year, but what's going to get in the way if everything else goes right is going to have to be, can Cliff Kingsbury coach? It's not just coaching, it's about not getting in his own head. We saw last year again, ladies and gentlemen, that Arizona Cardinals, after they had that amazing elite DeAndre Hopkins catch versus the Buffalo Bills, they had number one scoring offensive give or take, and then it started to go downhill. Part of that you can blame on the coach. The question is, even if the offensive defense gets it done, can Cliff Kingsbury lead this team to the playoffs? If not, farther. James Gonzalez, thank you for clearing what I was trying to communicate. Patrick Peterson is an unrestricted free agent. Exactly. Which is another reason why signing JJ Watt was a big deal. But thank you for clarifying that. James Gonzalez again. Thank you so much. But a player I would love to see that, I think ESPN pointed out in an article, Juju Smith. Now I know the Steelers, we'll talk about that here in just a moment. Pairing DeAndre Hopkins with Juju Smith, imagine what can happen. We know what Juju Smith is about as a receiver. Again, I know people are questioning about talking all that trash before the game, the same old Browns. We get that. We're talking about this year in free agency. We know the fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, Juju Smith is not going to say to the Steelers, the Steelers don't have the money. The Steelers are as broke as a teenage girl trying to buy Starbucks with her credit card. But folks, I think DeAndre Hopkins, we already know what he's about. Future first ballot Hall of Famer. I think having the leadership in what DeAndre Hopkins has been through with the Texans before he got traded to the Cardinals can help Juju Smith adjust. Imagine both guys who are great route runners, who know how to catch the football. You can trust them. I think that's going to be a big deal. We know what DeAndre Hopkins can do with his one-handed catch. Can this increase their chances of winning the division? I think it could be, but let's wait till we talk about Seattle Seahawks football. I think what really matters here, folks, even if you sign Juju Smith, you have J.J. Watt, Patrick Peterson, like James Gonzalez says, as an unrestricted free agent. All of it, I think, is going to go back to the coach. If something goes wrong, if something happens, if the team potentially collapses against a clinching divisional game or in the regular season against a divisional opponent, it's going to be because of Cliff Kingsbury. I'm not convinced of Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach. I get you have the history with Kyle Murray. I get all that. Sorry, folks. But I do not trust him. I'm not convinced of him as a head coach. I'm not sure what team, what NFL fans are convinced of Cliff Kingsbury as the head coach, but as the organization should do, unless they have a guy that they want to hire. They're going to say, we're convinced of him. He's the guy moving forward. We believe he can lead these teams to the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. A lot of good PR, a lot of good of HR, all these things. I get it. But with this team that they could have going into next year, I still do not trust Cliff Kingsbury. Again, let's go into our next topic, though. The New York Jets. Are they really headed into the right direction? Is Sam Darnold gone? Or are the Jets just doing Jets things? Jets GM Joe Douglas is open to Sam Darnold offers. Let's break down that first part. The Jets GM Joe Douglas is open to Sam Darnold offers. Number one, how much could the Jets go after? How much are they going to get for Sam Darnold? I would love to hear y'all's genuine opinion. How much realistically are the New York Jets going to get for Sam Darnold? We know they're going to draft a quarterback. You have $60+ million. You released veteran defensive end, I believe it's Henry Anderson, saving $8.2 million against the cap. Which means they're probably going to either draft Lawrence or another high quarterback in the 2021 NFL draft. We know they're going to draft a quarterback. They don't have to announce it. It just should be a surprise. I mean, look what happened with Washington back in 2012. You didn't have to say it, but we know who they were going to draft. We knew that in 2012. We know that 9 years later in 2021. Now the question is, what teams could really be interested in Sam Darnold could offer his services? Again, I'm not saying I'm a Sam Darnold fan, but I said we've seen flashes, little flashes and glimpses of what he could be as an NFL quarterback. If we could look at some of the teams and the realistic, not just cap situation, but moving forward. If Sam Darnold would be traded, how much could they get? What team could really be interested in Sam Darnold, and how could it benefit them not just this year, but moving forward? Is it going to be one of those where you trade for a guy, and then a year later you let him go, and he's pretty much almost done in the NFL? But Christian Wilson makes a phenomenal point here. The Jets are more likely to screw things up. Exactly, the Jets are going to do Jets things regardless if they get rid of Sam Darnold or not. I agree, but let's be real. Just like James Gonzalez says, Sam Darnold is worth a third or fourth round pick only, and I'm being generous. Was that partly because of Sam Darnold, James, or was it because of the organization, or was both? I 100% without a doubt agree with you on that one. Now the question is to move forward to start of another thought. If the Jets are listening to trade offers for quarterback Sam Darnold, are they going to be prideful? Are they going to try and be like other teams in the past where they're going to be asking for too much and then they're not going to be able to trade him? Not because they couldn't get a third or fourth round pick. Are the Jets thinking Sam Darnold is worth more than he actually is as a quarterback? Again, I think he could succeed in the NFL, but I'm saying, are the Jets thinking he's more valuable than what he really is, or what they could really get for him in a trade? When we really look at some of these teams, let's be realistic of who Sam Darnold could be traded to. At best, I could maybe say the New England Patriots, a struggling young quarterback going to a system with $70+ million or $80+ million in cap space, with a coach that puts up with no BS, no pun intended, tomorrow night with Isaiah Young and all those people here on the MI6 Sports Network. But let's say the New England Patriots. Really, let's be realistic here, folks. We can look at many of these other teams, but what do we see with a lot of these teams? They already have their answer at the quarterback position. I know there are rumors about New England potentially trading back for or getting back Jimmy Garoppolo in a trade, potentially the 49ers draft Zach Wilson. Who knows? That's one of the many, many things that I love about the NFL is sometimes or don't like is the uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen, but that's the excitement, in my opinion. And we could disagree, so no, there'll be too much flag. In my opinion, this quarterback draft class is the most boring one I've seen in a very long time. 2018 was exciting, and a couple other ones were exciting. I just wasn't truly excited about the 2021 quarterback class. But if you're the Jets, they're going to continue to do Jets things. Folks, this is the same organization that was so cocky when Mark Sanchez won against New England and won against his other team, even though the numbers didn't add up, but they won. They were so confident in Mark Sanchez. They gave him the deal. He was their quarterback. What happened a year or two later? Do you remember the butt fumble? Go look it up if you're too young to really understand what I'm talking about here. But James Gonzalez comes in to say both parts. They're at fault with Sam and the Jets roster. I agree. Their best receiver, Robbie Anderson, gone. Rashad Perriman was his best receiver this year. Really? No offensive line, no defense. You trade away your best defensive player. The Jets have always been known for defense for a very long time, but their offense is, let's say, this empty cup of coffee. That's how interesting it is. That's how much added value it brings to the organization. Your best receiver was Rashad Perriman, who had less than barely 600 yards in 2019, basically his career year with the Bucs. Jameis Winston had 30 for 30. That's your best receiver, and you expect him to succeed. I'm not saying he's elite, Sam Darnold. I'm not saying that at all. Let's not get overreacting here. But I think a lot of it could be on the organization. Yes, Sam Darnold needs to develop as a quarterback. It's the NFL. It's not Pee Wee. It's not flag football here, folks. But it's also the job of the organization to put the tools around him to succeed. He says, whatever happens to him, I hope he thrives. Me too, James and Chrissy. I wish him the best, and I hope he succeeds. And would love to have him on the show. But when we look at the Jets, we are, like I said, we released defensive end Henry Anderson. Saved $8.2 million against the cap. Last 3 years, played 24 games. Again, only played 8 games per season the last 3 years. So, folks, the Jets have struck nothing. Have struck garbage. The Jets are an organization where they rebuild every couple of years. 2014, that phenomenal defense, Muhammad Wilkerson, all those guys, Leonard Williams. He goes to New York with the Giants. I mean, my gosh, here, folks, the Jets are basically like a toddler. You would think a toddler or the organization of the New York Jets was ran by a little kid. Because what do kids do before they learn the lesson? They do the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Folks, that's not how the real world works. That's not how the NFL works. That's definitely not how you run an organization. I would be a better GM than who they have right now. I could be a better staff member than anybody that they have for the New York Jets right now. The reason why I'm passionate about it is not because I'm a Sam Darnold fan. I'm sorry, I'm kind of whispering. My parents are asleep, but I'm not a Jets fan. I'm a Broncos fan, but I do not tolerate mediocrity when it comes to the NFL. I do not tolerate any bullshit when it comes to anything in the NFL. I want every team to succeed. But there's always going to be those teams that have organizations that have guys that are running the team that don't know how to run it, in my opinion. And I wish Robert Saleh the best with the New York Jets and his endeavor with New York. But I think you could have the greatest head coach. Like I said this, I continue to verbally into y'all head. Drill this into y'all's head verbally. They could have the greatest head coach. They could have a head coach like they have right now. They could have the defense and potentially the franchise quarterback. But it's ran by the same people. Nothing's going to change. Because, he'll be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But it's been ran by the same people for year after year, years after years. And until the organization finally realizes what they're doing, finally stops beating the dead horse, finally stops putting up with mediocrity and bullfart when it comes to running a franchise and actually tries to win, then maybe things can change. But until then, or unless the organization has new management, nothing will change. That's what we talk about on That One Dude 2020. We like to talk about the truth. We like to talk about honesty. That's what I bring here to the network. That's what I love to do in the sports world. Be honest. Don't cause no drama. Tell the truth. It's the same ownership. When's the last time the Jets were in a Super Bowl? When's the last time you won a Super Bowl? Exactly my point here, folks. I'm not saying my Broncos are better off this year at all. But what I'm saying is the same organization is ran by the same people. Nothing will ever genuinely change. James Gonzalez basically takes the words out of my mouth. And the Jets are just annoying. And that's, frankly, James Gonzalez, that's the best word I could say. Because there's many words you want to say about the Jets organization, not just poorly run or pissly run. What else could you say about the New York Jets? There really isn't anything because they're so poor. They're basically like oh my gosh, like the potential of this. The potential, if you would compare the potential of the New York Jets many, many times over the years to a video game, you could compare it to the Google Stadia. It had all this potential, but it failed. Just like other Google projects, they start, they fail. Just like with the Jets trying to rebuild, they fail. Ownership isn't going to change anytime soon. So how do you expect the organization to change unless the ownership does change? That's what I bring. But continue more into NFL free agency here, folks. Again, there's a lot of notable NFL free agents here. We're talking about Dak Prescott, Rob Gronkowski, Shaq Barrett, and so many of those. Those few of those I want to talk about here on the show tonight here. And let's just bring the honest take here. But let's go, folks. According to NFL.com, keyword NFL.com came out with the article on NFL.com. Number one, they have Dak Prescott. Whether what we think about Dak Prescott or not, having a franchise quarterback go on the market potentially is going to get a lot of teams offered. Now, the question is, we know what Jerry Jones does. When Jerry Jones is sold on a guy, whether they're good or they're bad or they're terrible or they're elite or they're a Hall of Famer, whether they're their franchise quarterback or not, they're going to keep him. So I think what is truly and genuinely going to happen is that the Cowboys are going to franchise tag Dak. For folks, let's be real. You got Amari Cooper. You got the CeeDee Lamb in the 2020 NFL Draft. You got potentially your starting tight end coming back next year. Who do you have on defense? You lost Byron Jones. Charlie, is he going to retire? He can't stay healthy. A couple of defensive players are coming up for a contract. Jalen Smith had a couple. Jaden Smith. All these guys are coming up for a contract. I think with an owner, just like we know about other teams, but specifically for the Dallas Cowboys, many reasons why the Cowboys don't succeed. Again, of course, I'm not here to just dog on it. I just think that what is really hard as an owner, but what they need to do. But Jerry Jones, for some reason, doesn't know when to pay the players at the right time. Sometimes you can say it could be luck or you were fortunate. But Jerry Jones, for some reason, pays the players at the wrong, inappropriate time. What's really going to happen is, no matter if people think he's an elite quarterback or a franchise quarterback, the longer they wait, the more expensive he gets. So the question here, folks, is if the Dallas Cowboys give a long-term, extensive deal to Dak Prescott, let's be honest, does it hurt or help their chances of retaining other players and potentially contending in 2021 and future NFL seasons? Christian Wilson makes a good point here that I forgot. Having Dak play on the franchise tag makes sense to me because it gives him a chance to bounce back from that ankle injury. Exactly. That's another point I didn't even think about injury. Or Christian Wilson's that injury. The Cowboys could use it as ammo to not give Dak as much money. So if the Dallas Cowboys franchise tag him, it would be like giving Dak Prescott that amount of money per year, but just for this season. I think that's where it goes to a nitty-gritty topic here is when you're an organization is how and when to pay the quarterback. If you don't pay him now, you could lose him to another team. If you pay him now, it could hurt your team contending for the future. That's why it's just so many different situations, so many difficult decisions. You don't know what to do. When do you pay a quarterback? Again, it could be so many different solutions I could give. We don't have that much time on the show to really talk about all those potential solutions. But Jerry Jones needs to not do what Jerry Jones did in the past. Does Jerry Jones care about winning? I don't know. I'm not here to put words in his mouth. But franchise tagging Dak Prescott is going to be their best option. Now, is Dak going to accept that? Does Dak want to be with the Cowboys? If I'm Dak, again, I'm not speaking for him. I've never met him. Would love to have him on the show. But I'm saying, if I'm Dak and you go to the market, you probably have a better chance going to a team that could contend in a couple years faster than with the Dallas Cowboys. We know they contended his rookie year. I understand in 2016. But we're in 2021 now here, folks. Jerry Jones cannot turn the time machine and go back to 2016. If I'm Dak and any Dak Prescott fans that are watching this video or going to watch this video in a couple of days, what will help Dak? What is a better chance of Dak Prescott contending for a Super Bowl? Is it staying with the Dallas Cowboys, or is it going to be on the open free agent market? Because mind you, going to the open free agent market, you're going to get more money than you thought. But that could also hurt teams from contending because you have to be able to retain your players. You can't do that when you overpay at the quarterback position. Christian Wilson says, as for Jerry Jones, my opinion on him has become more unfavorable by the minute. Even Christy, even though I dog on Cowboys fans, I when I say I'm sorry, I don't mean it in a sarcastic way. Like, I can't imagine what it is like to have an owner like Jerry Jones. I wonder what it's like in the locker room. Ladies and gentlemen, this next one here is extremely important. The offensive line. Offensive tackle Trent Williams, traded in 2020, who also played in Washington with Kyle Shanahan when they also had RG3 at the time. Then, of course, with Kirk Cousins at the quarterback position. He's 33 years old. Wasn't able to play as much last year because of COVID and injuries. Honestly, I'm not saying because he had COVID, but in terms of not being able to practice as much can increase the injury risk. Should the 49ers pay him? I understand they need to address the offensive line. Now, I understand that they're maybe not sold on Jimmy Garoppolo and they need to look for a franchise quarterback. You pay him, you protect your quarterback. But at the same time, does it hurt or help your team's chances of retaining some of the other defensive players, cough, cough, depending on if other players hit the free agent market? Number 3 here, Allen Robinson. The Bears are looking to trade him. Having a receiver like him hit the free agent market. Imagine how much he's going to get. Look what he did in Jacksonville for a bit. Look what he did in Chicago. Look how many different quarterbacks he's had. It was Trubisky, Foles, Trubisky, Foles, Trubisky, Foles, Trubisky, this, and then Trubisky, another guy. I would love to see Allen Robinson. Again, I will predict this, talk about this a little bit next week with a special guest. Tuesday morning, we will announce here onto the show here, ladies and gentlemen. It said, who? Again, I think maybe potentially referring to the guest I'm going to have Tuesday morning. And if you're talking about that guest, I will tell you all here in just a moment. I'm getting that list. Greg Auman, who covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for The Athletic, who will be coming on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Again, it's going to be such a great show. Greg Auman, March 9th, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Back into NFL free agency talk. Really want to talk about this receiver right here, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Godwin. If I'm being honest here, folks, if you really want to talk about Chris Godwin, I understand Mike Evans took some of the money from his contract so other players can be retained. Shaq Barrett's going to ask for a lot of money. Yeah, what are you going to do with a couple of Vea in a year or two? Are you really going to keep Leonard Fournette? What are you going to do about Ronald Jones in the next year or two? These are all these things. Not just thinking of the moment, thinking about the long-term solution, 2 to 5 to 10, 12, 15 plus years from now. Can you see any hope for the Cowboys this year? I mean, Don, I'm not saying this is a dog. I think they could. But they had more hope in 2015, 2016. Not because I was saying, I'm just another Cowboys hater. I think a lot has to happen here, man. But I think from the Cowboys fans' perspective, or maybe the players, until Jerry Jones gets out of his own head, is anything really going to change? With the NFL not making a lot of revenue as much as they're being used to due to fans, the cap is, I think, less than $190 million, I think, for the entire NFL. Correct me if I'm wrong. So they're not going to have as much money to spend in free agency. They're going to have to look at the draft. You're concerned about Dak Prescott. Is he going to stay healthy next year, which could determine if they give him a long-term contract or the franchise tag. So if you're concerned about his health, you're going to have to address the offensive line in the draft. I think there is hope for the Dallas Cowboys next year. But if Washington gets a quarterback, then maybe. But I think there's more hope this year because Carson Wentz went to the AFC South. Washington is set to release quarterback Alex Smith. The Eagles is Jalen Hurts their guy, so there's so many unidentities at the quarterback position in the NFC East. I can see hope for the Dallas Cowboys this year, Don, my man. But I think Jerry Jones may get his own way from that potentially happening. But again, if anybody has any football questions or anything of the sort, I'm more than happy to answer this while we are on this live video. But Don, thank you so much for tuning in on Periscope tonight as we kind of look at free agency, a lot of uncertainty. Shaq Barrett is a monster in the playoffs, folks. I know a lot about Shaq Barrett. Drafted by my Denver Broncos in 2014. 2 years later, of course, traded because, again, Broncos were in rebuilding mode with Peyton Manning retired in 2016. First ballot Hall of Famer. We know his sacks kind of fell off in 2020, but in the playoffs, showed when it mattered. like in the Super Bowl. I'm happy the Chiefs lost. No offense, Darren. I'm a Broncos fan. So anytime a team in the AFC West loses in a big game that aren't the Broncos, I'm truly and genuinely excited. But the question is here with the Bucks, with Mike Evans leaving some money back to the organization to spend on retaining certain offensive and defensive players. How much is Shaq Barrett going to be asking for? But if I'm the Bucks, or I have a question to ask any NFL fan that's watching the show tonight. If you are the Bucks GM and the Bucks organization, which is a bigger priority to re-sign in free agency? Is it Shaq Barrett or Chris Godwin? Again, love to hear y'all's genuine opinion. Chris Godwin or Shaq Barrett? Who should be a bigger priority in free agency for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Super Bowl champion Buccaneers? Folks, these past couple years, you talk about the Packers to be critical about the offensive line or the defense. What was one of the highlights? Aaron Jones. Folks, he said to be a free agent. The Packers don't have a lot of money because of Aaron Rodgers' contract and other guys on the defense side of the ball. You got Devontae Adams. Will the Packers do whatever they can to retain Aaron Jones? But if they do, is that going to hurt them contending in the future? Aaron Jones is extremely, and this is one of the things that's hard about an organization, is when you have a player that is such helpful to your team winning, but you don't have the cap situation to be able to pay him, or because it could hurt your team moving forward because of how much you paid him, even though that player deserves it. That's one of the rough things about the NFL. This is not the MLB. This is not the NBA. We get pay as many players as much as you can to a certain extent with a certain amount of NFL or NBA, MLB players. Packers should re-sign Aaron Jones. The question is, how much are they going to pay, or how much is he worth to pay, and would it hurt them moving forward here, ladies and gentlemen, as we kind of go back into more into free agency? Carl Lawson. Folks, question is, should the Bengals sign him to a long-term deal? Should the Bengals franchise tag him? And maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I want to say, why keep him? I understand he's a phenomenal player. I understand the team is trying to rebuild here. I just think with the upcoming NFL class this year and moving forward, they have a better option. They're trying to rebuild here. When you're a team that's rebuilding, signing huge contracts to guys could be harmful. It could help them. But being honest, Carl Lawson's a good player, but on the Bengals, let him go in free agency. But James Gonzalez comes in the same. Barrett should be the Bucks' priority. I agree, my man. Godwin, exactly. Godwin seems like he was injured and out of most games of last season. That's why I compare him to Calvin Ridley, who phenomenal talent when healthy on the field. But when he's injured, he's injured. But I definitely think one of the players from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could be traded or sent to a new team or signed to a new team. Talk about that Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. with Greg Auman, who covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the Athletic. But Christian Wilson says I would say both, but I'm guessing the Bucks don't have enough salary cap room to do that. Pretty much, Christy Wilson, that's kind of the frustrating part as a NFL team. That's why I think, in my genuine opinion, it should be Shaq Barrett. Everybody has their own opinion, but we need the guy to be consistently healthy. Shaq Barrett's your guy. Chris Godwin, a phenomenal receiver, is for some reason has a hard time to stay healthy, but I'm rooting for him. This one here, folks. Jadeveon Clowney. Almost a year ago, I called him a clown because this is a guy that was expecting so much money. Not until early, right before the season started, I think, June or July, he got signed by Tennessee. His stock is low. Not a lot of teams are going to be offering him a lot of money. Folks, I'll be real. Jadeveon Clowney is the most overrated defensive player in the NFL right now. But he's one of those guys, if you compare his potential to a college football team, be Georgia. Oh, he did it. Oh, wait, he almost did this, or he almost did that. The problem is Jadeveon Clowney has so much potential, but he hasn't unlocked it because of injuries or just isn't as dependable on the field as we would like to see him on the field. The reason why I'm talking about this, look at Seattle. Look at their defensive ranks. when Jadeveon Clowney was there. And look at the wild card game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Was Jadeveon Clowney there? Look at the dependability about him last year. How did he help the Tennessee defense against the Colts? Where is Jadeveon Clowney? Really, folks, where was he? Exactly. He was nowhere. Again, I think, potential doesn't mean every NFL player was going to unlock it. Do I think he could be great? Yeah, could. It's different. Folks, he was drafted in 2014. Only good season he had was in 2016. He was injured prone his first year and a half, 2 years in the NFL. But let's be honest here. Talk about Jadeveon Clowney. Again, let me make this clear. I shouldn't have to do this, but I'm going to. I am critical of him as a player, but that does not mean I'm critical of him as a person. Being critical of him as a player, being critical of them as a person are two different things. As a player, sometimes we have to be humble. I mean, maybe he is, but not a lot of teams going after. Oh, folks, I just thought of something here. If Jadeveon Clowney doesn't get as much as he thinks in free agency, Washington. Again, I know I'm not saying he's a premier defensive player. All those guys, Chase Young and whoever those to get in the draft and have the money they have in free agency. It could be just a 1-year deal, but imagine the potential there if he can unlock what I believe he can as a defensive player. I think that'll be without a doubt interesting as we look at this free agency list. Juju Smith, again, I take back the comment of him going to the Cardinals because James Gonzalez makes a good point. I didn't mean to ignore this comment. Every comment will be read on air to the best of our ability at any point during the show. I wouldn't touch Juju unless he shows you that he's mature enough to keep his mouth and antics to a big fat 0 and needs to ball out. Exactly. I have no problem, James, with an NFL player talking trash, with an NFL player saying this and that. If you can 100% guarantee you can back it up, but you can't, because nothing in life is ever 100% guaranteed. Or it can be, but that's another conversation for another day. And you can talk that trash after the game, after you actually won the game, because then you would have no problem with that. We could agree. But folks, I retract the statement of Juju Smith going to the Cardinals. I think, again, there's nothing wrong with being known for your social media. But if you're going to talk trash, you have to be able to back. That's the biggest thing about trash talk, is being able to back it up. But folks, going back here to our last couple of topics on that one, dude, 2020, right here on the MI6 Sports Network. Here we're going down here to our last couple of topics. The Pittsburgh Steelers found a way to re-sign Ben Roethlisberger to a 1-year deal. The Big Ben lowers his cap hit by $15 million, which means Ben Roethlisberger willingly reduces pay by $5 million, spreads out cash payments to reducing the $41.2 million against the cap, was basic cap hit. This means now he's on a short 1-year deal. Folks, in a marriage, sometimes, or in life, or in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, you have a good friend. You have a lot of great memories. The Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger have 2 Super Bowls. Great memories. Memories for me that I remember watching on TV and betting against in the Super Bowl against the Arizona Cardinals and Kurt Warner and Larry Fitzgerald. You have the great memories. You have the Super Bowl wins. You have the Super Bowl picks. We get all of that here, folks. But sometimes in a marriage, sometimes in a relationship, some people don't know when to end it when on a good note. Some people need to swallow their pride. I think with the Steelers here, they're in denial. I say Big Ben's a future first ballot Hall of Famer, two-time Super Bowl champion. We can't argue or debate that. But Christian Wilson makes a good point. This could be his last season. I think he is. He's 38, going to be 39 this year. Ben Roethlisberger just isn't the same player. And even if he was, the Steelers don't have the money to address the entire offensive line. And some players on the defensive side of the ball. You don't have the running game. It's Dante Johnson, it's Chase Claypool, your guys for the future. There's so many concerns. It's great for Ben Roethlisberger that he's back. But you heard it here on the MSX Sports Network. I'm picking my AFC North champion right now. Who's going to win the AFC North in my genuine opinion? Folks, tune in after this commercial break. Haha. I'm picking the Cleveland Browns to win the AFC North next year. But going back to the Steelers, folks, Ben Roethlisberger is older. The relationship had a bunch of great memories, but sometimes in life we need to learn how to end things on a high note before it goes sour, before the grape turns into a raisin. And James Gonzalez continues to say what I'm trying to say. I wouldn't take the Steelers seriously again until they get rid of Ben Roethlisberger. I agree. Look what the Browns are doing with Kevin Stefanski. Look what the Ravens could be doing. The Bengals moving forward. Oh, Isaiah. Another part of the Isaiah Rosas. Folks, Isaiah picked the Cincinnati Bengals to win the AFC North in 2021. Just wanted to share that out there. But again, I picked the Cleveland Browns to win the AFC North in 2021. But Ben Roethlisberger, a phenomenal quarterback. But again, he just isn't the same guy as he used to be. Going back to more quarterback, not just drama, but stories in the NFL here, folks. The Seattle Seahawks have made calls to other teams about trading away Russell Wilson. Folks, it's one of those stories where I want to report the truth. I'm always going to report the truth of what I believe in. But potentially, in my opinion, it's looking like that Seattle Seahawks could move on from Russell Wilson. But the question is, like I go back to here, folks, who should be fired if this happens? Not just a GM, but the head coach. Honestly, Russell Wilson deserved to be paid. Look at the NFC West. You got J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones. You got to look at the 49ers with Bosa and Kinlaw and all those defensive players. I mean, just look at the Rams, Aaron Donald, Michael Brockers, all those guys on the defensive side of the ball. Look what Russell Wilson has to do. Russell Wilson has been sacked 394 times since being drafted in 2012. Let's be honest. Do I think there's something to the story? Yes. I think it's going to be one of those stories where it takes a while to develop if there is anything there. But I think Seattle could move on from him. But it's going to be a hefty, hefty price. But like I said here, folks, to a friend at work, because of the Matthew Stafford trade, keyword, because of the Matthew Stafford trade, it's going to ruin other trades in the NFL for franchise quarterbacks because look at how much look how much the Detroit Lions got for Matthew Stafford, who hasn't won in the playoffs, whether it's his fault or not. Look how much the Lions got for him. Imagine what Seattle could get for Russell Wilson. Personally, I don't think Wilson will be traded by Seattle. You know what? I'm actually kind of leaning towards that now just because even if they were going to trade him, it would cost too much dead money against the cap. So I agree there, James Gonzalez. I would be shocked if he is traded, but at the same time, I think the Seattle Seahawks need to actually listen to his concerns. I'm not saying doing everything he wants, but they need to listen to his concerns because there definitely is a lot of things to be concerned about. Being sacked 394 times since being drafted in 2012. I don't think he'll be traded, but sooner or later here, folks, we need to address part of the problem. Fire the GM of the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know why that is so difficult here. What has he done as a GM to prove that he can lead a team? What has he proved? That he can make smart decisions to put Russell Wilson in these turns to succeed as an NFL quarterback in the league. What has he done? Russell Wilson has gotten sacked time and time and time again. Okay, we'll give him credit. Oh, wait, that's getting sacked as an NFL quarterback. That's not good. Oh, they want. Oh, wait, no. Oh, wait, no. He signed Jadeveon Clowney, trade for him. Oh, wait, 1 year, gone. Didn't help the defense at all. Boom. I just don't understand. I don't say nobody. Not as many people are talking about this as much as I would like to hear. The GM for Seattle needs to be fired right now. I don't understand. Here, folks, Ismail comes in and say, he won a Super Bowl without a doubt. I agree. I just think it's one of those where Ismail, I don't think he did win a Super Bowl. It's a phenomenal one against my Denver Broncos, though. So cough, cough. But here, folks, is that fire the Seattle GM. I don't know what else to say. If they're not going to put any blame on him, more people need to start talking about this. Fire the Seattle Seahawks GM, because I frankly don't understand why he isn't getting any blame at all here, folks. Well, with that being said, on tonight's 1 hour program, let's get to tonight's final thoughts. Folks, here's been a great and fun show. Thank you all so much for supporting it for tonight. A couple announcements before we go into my final thoughts here. I have the full list of guests we're going to have on for the month of March. This Saturday, March 6th, we're going to have Darren Smith, the award-winning radio host that reports on the Kansas City Chiefs here. March 9th at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. March 9th, which is on Tuesday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be joined by Greg Allman to come into my show. Thank you so much for all y'all for coming to the show from the bottom of my heart. And then March 14th, Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be joined by Rachel L. Hill. Again, thank you so much for coming on my show, for all of you. Then March 20th, Stephen Gillespie, my man, is going to be coming onto the show for that Want to Do 2020. We already have potentially 2 to 3 guests scheduled already for April, so stay tuned in for that. It's going to be a jam-packed couple of months here for guests and franchise being built and all of that and the sort. But my final thoughts here after those announcements is, folks, I love being here. I love doing this. I love talking sports here on the MI6 Sports Network, and you never know what can happen. But what can I say about the sports world is that you're going to get projected more times than you are. The industry taketh and the industry giveth. Finally, starting to understand that. But before we go, remind you all, Isaiah proposed to a teddy bear.
Anna, I love you so much. You have been the biggest and best blessing of my life. You know, from coming down with me from Canada to move to Las Cruces and support me and support our Aggies. You have been the best girlfriend I could have asked for. Now, I ask you, Anna Cathcart, would you take the honor and marry me and be my wife? I love you so much.
Sorry, you had to be traumatized by that. And again, that is That One Dude 2020 right here on the MI6 Sports Network for episode 10. Join us this Saturday, Darren Smith special exclusive interview right here on the MI6 Sports Network for the That One Dude 2020 Sports Show. Thank you for watching and have a good one.
The Broncos are going to lose today. It's nothing special.
Folks, before we ended there, I saw a hilarious comment. James Gonzalez comes in and say, this pandemic needs to end so Isaiah won't be doing these types of things with his teddy bear. I agree with man, but Ishmael comes in and say, dude, Pete Carroll has final say in personnel. Fair enough. Snyder just reports to Pete and does what Pete wants. If you fire Snyder, it'd be no use. Pete Carroll needs to go. I couldn't agree more. But again, we're actually ending this time with That One Dude 2020. Have a good one. Peace.
The Broncos are going to lose today. It's nothing special. Small. 49ers are biased on KD. That is a stupid idea. No. If I can take it when my team, I'll give the Colts the benefit of the doubt. Madden 21 was so bad.
I'm gonna still last play. I'm getting my body.
Has he played? Has he started? And try to tell you. Tag him on Instagram. Second, and all these tantrums. I could have. Monte Foreman coming out of Texas.